Welcome to the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast.
It's not anymore about you. It's not anymore about your ego and proving yourself, but it's how we often say in adventure racing, it's about caring for the team well-being, and by this, reaching some successful performance. Because only if the team is well, you can achieve anything in adventure racing.
Okay. You people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
You're going the wrong way! What? You're going the wrong way! He says we're going the wrong way.
Oh, he's drunk. How would he know where we're going?
Yeah, how would he know? Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Welcome to episode 92 of the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast. This is your host, Brian Gatens. Episode 92 of the Dark Zone. Hard to believe it. 92 episodes in already. Closing in on 100. Working on a special guest for that episode. Someone near and dear to the Dark Zone's heart. And that episode will be recorded live and in person. Can't wait to go do that one. But back to episode 92. Adametz is a Polish adventure racer. He went to Routa, the one in the Philippines, not in Mexico, and he had a wild race. Raf is a natural storyteller, full of wisdom. He's a coach. He loves the sport. He loves exercise. He loves everything that adventure racing does for him, and we're delighted to have him on the show. So sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of The Dark Zone. Thank you to Jade Eagles from Wealth Garden Financial Services for sponsoring this episode. Jade is a fellow adventure racer who first started in Australia 15 years ago and recently completed the World Championship in South Africa. His other passion is helping individuals and their families establish a positive relationship with money and partnering with his clients to plan for a financially secure future. To learn more about Jade and his financial planning practice, The Wealth Garden, please visit www.thewealthgardenfs.com and drop him a note. That's www.thewealthgardenfs.com. Exciting news from our episode sponsor, Ascend Athletics. This spring, Ascend will be celebrating the relaunch of their 9-year-old program in Afghanistan and the 1-year launch into Pakistan. Through sports and leadership training, Ascend has been reshaping educational and career opportunities for girls in these regions, championing gender equality, and creating a future where girls in society can thrive. Each girl Ascend supports becomes a door for many other girls, and this year they're aiming to reach even more. Ascend will be holding their second annual Hike for Her event in Virginia on June 1st, 2024. Visit the Hike for Her page at www.ascendathletics.org/attend-events, that's one word, to learn how to register. Remember, Ascend is an international organization, so you don't have to be local to join in. You can become a sponsor or even create your own team from afar and hike for her on your local trails. And as a reminder, Ascend pays nothing for the sponsorship. We're happy to host them and to spread the word of their good work. Today we're joined by Polish adventure racer Rafael Adametz. Rafael recently competed in Routa, which was the race that was held in the Philippines not too long ago. Not the Routa that was held in Mexico, but the Philippines version. I was connected with him through some fellow racers, heard he had a great story, and invited Rafael onto the show today. Rafael, thanks for coming onto the Dark Zone. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be there.
I had the chance to go through your website, and you do so much stuff, and you've done so much racing over time, sub 3-hour marathon or a lot of adventure racing. Clearly, your entire life is wrapped up in the sport of physical fitness and movement and all of those things. Could you tell our listeners a bit about yourself? Give us the high-level overview of your racing experience, the things you've done, and how you approach racing.
I like to think that back then I used to be one of the youngest adventure racer in Poland because it started for me pretty early. When I was 16, I think I did my first 100K orienteering run, stuff like that. And this was this very simple need, I think, of searching for something more, trying to do something more difficult, longer, and so on. And this is how I ended up in doing adventure racing. And to be honest, back then in Poland, it was also for me difficult to go abroad, to travel. But big expedition races, they were always kind of like my dream. And then when I was 18, 20, and my friends were talking about football stars, I was already in my adventure racing world. So that's really a big part of my life. Now I'm 34, by the way, and still doing this. So I had a time when I was also organizing small middle adventure races in Poland. And what is more, now I'm doing a part-time PhD in the Open University UK, and also my focus is on ultra endurance sports in general. So kind of, everything around adventure racing is really my thing. Yeah.
And so that's a common thing that we hear, right? People enter the sport at different points in their life, right? A lot of people come into the sport after doing other endurance sports, right? They'll run through their 20s and 30s, and they'll marathons, and they'll get into Ironman, perhaps bicycle racing, and then they'll hear about adventure racing and they'll flow into that. It sounds like from a very young age, 16 years old, right? And you were attracted to this. Tell us a bit about the endurance scene in Poland. Yeah, full disclosure, you're my first Polish guest that we've had, right? And and we love learning about the vibe and the culture in other countries. Walk us through in Poland what it is like in terms of adventure racing sports, in terms of the access to things like that. You mentioned in orienteering runs, marathons. What's it like being an endurance racer in Poland?
Yeah. I think important fact is that we really have a strong orienteering tradition, and I was never into like professional orienteering runs, if you know what I mean, like orienteering per se, but always more in this adventure survival kind of sort. So both sport orienteering and this touristic version, as I like to call it, are very popular in Poland. So I was able to have a good training in the navigation during, being a scout in a scouting team, even having some elements of it at school, stuff like this. And ultra sports, I can't say for sure, but I guess like many things, they came a little bit later to Poland than to let's say more western part of Europe or US. But at the moment, we have a really strong scene in ultra endurance sports. So yeah, I think I was witnessing this development of this sport in Poland and just tried to participate as much as I could. But yeah, again, back then I really felt this financial barrier when I was hearing from my friends who were doing adventure racing on the global level, how much it all costs, the bike, the travel. Yeah. I was thinking like, man, it's impossible for me. But yeah, now here I am living my dream. So I'm very happy.
I think I think you're right. You're talking about the math on that. The fact that you're 34 years old now, you started when you were 16. Poland has a very interesting history in terms of geopolitics, right? Yeah, where in the 80s and 90s, right, with the influence of Russia, Soviet Union on your doorstep, and the fact that over time Poland eventually moved towards more and more freedom, a lot of things flowed into Poland, and Poland did play a little bit of catch up to the rest of Western Europe. And I think it's interesting how your personal trajectory in endurance sports and adventure racing kind of followed the overall growth of the country, how it got bigger and it grew over time. Yeah. I'll also share that one of the things that I'm most admiring of and a little bit jealous of is the orienteering culture that we see in Europe. We have friends right now that are traveling throughout the world, and they're in Europe. And every city they go to, if they do a search for orienteering map in the name of that city, there's a beautiful color orienteering map that's developed that they could use to see the city. So Europe does that very, very well. You mentioned at 16, you did your first 100K orienteering run, and now you do, long distance ultra endurance adventure racing. Walk us a bit more through your resume. And our guests very often are newer adventure racers. And so the way in which people grow in the sport is always very important to our listeners. Walk us a bit through your personal trajectory. You did those, like, when was your first team-based event? Like, and how did you find that team and what was your role on that team? Tell us about your first adventure race experience.
Yeah, so this first 100K, I must say, I didn't finish it. I only accomplished,
a lot of people have that, so have no fear.
I only accomplished 80 kilometers, and then I did some terrible navigational mistake, and I couldn't go further. Half a year later, I managed to complete this course, and then adventure racing. Of course, the first challenge was to find a team. We still have many races that are designed for 2-person teams. So this was, let's say, less of a problem than finding 3 members. Just using some internet forum, and actually, I think my first teammate I met on this running event, on this 100K orienteering event, but he was actually doing biking course. So it was from the very beginning, I was the runner, he was the biker. Let's join forces and do adventure racing kind of thing. And he was much older than for me. I mean, and if I was then 17, 18, he was at least 2 times older. But we tried some small race, 50, 60 kilometers. We have many of those in Poland. And this is, I think, for people who want to start, a very good choice to find a race which has like really reasonable distance. I wouldn't recommend anything more than like 80 kilometers. When half of it is on the bike, it's doable for anyone who has some endurance. And because as experienced racers know, what's most special about adventure racing is the mixture, right? It's that you need to be able to switch between disciplines and to be at least middle level in each of them.
Right.
And then slowly, as I said, I definitely was a strong runner for first few years of my adventure racing. I even felt like, okay, I'm staying a bit behind on the biking stages, and also didn't have much experience on kayaking, only many family trips, which was good, but not enough for like competitive racing. So I also needed to catch up, and I think it's very normal, and we should not be afraid, that you come into the discipline and you cannot be alpha omega in all the disciplines on the very beginning.
Well, that's one thing we hear very often for adventure racers when they're beginning, is the idea that if you come in thinking you're going to dominate everything, it's going to be a really, really hard experience for you, and you have to grow over time. I'm intrigued by something you said earlier. In that 100K orienteering run, you only did 80K, and then you said you went back and you did the rest of it 6 months later. Yeah. And was the race held again, or did you have to go prove it to yourself that you could do the entire course?
It's one of the oldest events of this kind in northern Poland. It's called Harpagan, and it takes place every half a year. So you have like a autumn edition, summer edition. The course is of course different each time because it's a orienteering event. So this was like, okay, I didn't manage. Let's try again. So maybe that's an important point, that in my first years, definitely that was a big motivation to me, and I'm not ashamed of it. You wanted to prove something to yourself. You wanted to prove something to your colleagues that you can do it, that you are tough, and so on. I did my first marathon also. Just before this 100, I did my first street marathon, and I felt, okay, that's not exactly what I wanted. And as I mentioned before, I was seeking for more and more and more. And definitely at the beginning, the motivation was to prove something. It's not anymore, but it was.
That makes you make an interesting point about that, right? That a large part of human nature, right? And I know that I've seen your website, which I'll put into the show notes for the listeners. They can look at your website. Is that you talk a lot about personal motivation. You talk a lot about why you do this. And I think you make a really valid point that says the first things we do these things, the capital W, I'm making a generalization, because we want to prove something to ourselves, right? We see something happen. We know that it's hard and difficult, and we want to do that thing. But very often we do that thing, right? You do the 100K orienteering race, you run the marathon, and that box is checked. There are some people who, after checking that box, go in this direction, and they're done. They're finished. They've moved on to the next thing. And there are people that say, I've done that, but I could do more. There's more out there for me. And I think you make a good point there that clearly you felt that there was more out there for you after doing the marathon and the 100K, and you wanted to keep going. So from that point, how did your racing grow? Like, what else did you move into following that? And then tell us a bit about what was your training like at that time? When you're 16, 17, 18 years old, you have youth on your side, you have age on your side. But now as you grow older, how has your training changed?
So maybe I start from the training part. It's an unrelated but very important fact. I'm a tennis coach. I play tennis since I was a child, and I work full-time as a tennis and a fitness coach here in Berlin. So tennis was part of my life also since always. And so it was always kind of integrated, in everything else I was doing. And why it is important? Because it's still physical training. When I was a teenager, I was playing some tournaments, but I was never on like profi career way. But I was playing up to 4 times per week, plus some tournament. So it was pretty intense. So in my case, what's important is that I'm active, even if I don't have a very strength training routine at the moment. I'm active because of my professional work. I'm coaching, I'm on the court, I'm running with kids, or I'm hitting with adults. And also next to tennis, actually, my running started. I was running just to supplement my tennis level, and it developed this way. So even now, although I'm not playing tennis competitively, tennis is a big part of my life, and I'm constantly in the movement because of my work. So that's what I'm often trying to explain to people who ask me about the training, because you always think, well, for adventure racing, if you do 500 kilometers, you need to train like crazy. The volume must be ridiculous. And what my answer is, and what my way of training is, it's becoming your lifestyle. And I think it's also often the case that you really just trying to squeeze a training unit everywhere in between. So you bike to work, you bike to your friends, you take a longer walk instead of going with a train. You search for those big weekends, so spending your weekend not on chilling at home, but going to the forest or making a short trip and stuff like that. And that's for now. Maybe you can hit another question now, or remind me what should I talk about.
But you're absolutely right about that. By the way, when people who are interested in adventure racing want to push into it, they sometimes see the sport itself, and it looks like too big of a bike for them. Right. They see the equipment, and you're absolutely right about the cost of the racing. Like that's a huge barrier for entry for a lot of people. Yeah. But they see the amount of equipment you need. They see the multiple disciplines you need. And they think to themselves, I could never do this because of all these reasons. But you hit upon a really important point, and I am far from a coach, but I've lived it and I've seen it, and I know it works for other people. Is that the most successful endurance athletes, also the adventure racers that are good at it, are people who build movement into their day-to-day lives, right? And so it's not like And these are full-time workers. I mean, they're some of the best racers that I've met are people who have 40, 50, 60-hour-a-week jobs. But in their free time, they make conscious decisions to spend their time moving. And you're right, between your tennis coaching and between the fact that you walk rather than take the train, you cycle, things like that, all that base of fitness, it adds. And then you could do a lot more than you can expect. Obviously, if you're going to do a big, huge, massive 500-600 kilometer race, you need to have big weekends. You need to practice those things.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily need, it's available really to everybody. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. And the point that you're making is that you could help yourself in a big way by training a lot harder, but also by training very steady. So I really enjoyed that. And you're right there. And over time, the movement is what keeps you going. The movement is what helps you there. Making the jump from being an individual racer, right, the orienteering by yourself, to being a teammate is a big jump that a lot of people have to make. And sometimes that's a hard jump, right? Because you're now responsible for the entire team. Walk us through how you did that, how you went from racing solo, racing by yourself, to being a good teammate. What did you learn in that process?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I started racing in just two-person team. And then as we got interested in, doing some bigger race, we needed to find another teammates. So we did. Also nothing special about it. We asked around. Of course, maybe not of course anymore, but back then finding a female part of the team was way more difficult than finding a male part. But we managed. We had our team. My first team name was Navigatoria. I like to mention it because later also when I was organizing events, we were doing this under the same name. So this was a big part of my adventure racing career, Navigatoria Adventure Racing Team. And we did some races together. And maybe shortly about this transitioning from being solo to a team player. Yeah, and it's a very special, because again, tennis is an individual sport. So I think from the beginning I was more of a solo fighter, if I can say.
Sure. Yeah.
So definitely being in a team is a different reality, and you need to learn different skills, but also change your mindset, because it's not anymore about you. It's not anymore about your ego and proving yourself, but it's how we often say in adventure racing, it's about caring for the team well-being, and by this reaching some successful performance, because only if the team is well, you can achieve anything in adventure racing. Yeah, that's
the big leap, right? I mean, people are fitness will only get you so far, right? Some of the most fit people I've known have had the most challenges as a teammate, right? And so those two things don't always correlate. There's an attitude, there's a mindset shift, and the idea that you have to bring the team forward. You said the idea of changing your mindset. On a team setting, what role did you usually play? Were you the navigator, the captain? Did you carry the gear? Like what did you do to bring the team forward? What was your strength?
Yeah, at the beginning, as I was in general very excited and motivated about adventure racing, I was often a team captain. I was the one who was, gathering the team, motivating. Maybe not at the very beginning, but shortly after. But last years, I rather stepped back from this role, or somehow it didn't find me. Maybe it's because I don't have like a proper team and my own team. I'm not like fixed in one team, so I'm totally fine with not being a captain, even though before it was something I wanted to do. And I'm a navigator, because as I said, since childhood I also had something to do with maps, so have these skills. I always like to say I don't think I am talented in navigating, but I trained it a lot.
Right.
So the last years I was a navigator, and I think it's a role I really like, because it's a big responsibility, even though I like to say again that in a team all responsibility is shared.
Yes. Yep.
But still, being a navigator, you always gonna have these thoughts. It's me who done the mistake.
Well,
it's me who needs to make this choice.
I mean, you're spot on about that. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for sympathy is a tough word to use. I empathize with navigators because they have the entire team in their back, right? And so the role of the captain, right? The captain is sort of keep everybody healthy and check on, are you eating? Are your feet hurting? Can I carry your gear? So the captain is in charge of the overall, the movement of the team. But that navigator with the map in her hand, and she's out there and she has that. And if there's a tremendous amount of pressure that lays on a navigator during a race, which as a teammate, you have to have some sympathy for that. Now, I think the best thing I've seen for navigators is the best thing that a teammate can do is to make things easy for the navigator, right? In terms of all they have to do is focus on the map in front of them and make sure their gear is sorted in transition areas, help them move their bikes around, all of those things around, and let them just mentally sit inside the maps, because that just weighs on you over time. I also agree with you too. It's nice sometimes to just be a racer, right? Not a captain, not a navigator. I'm just the guy back here moving as quickly as I can, carrying extra gear. Let me know. What was your first big multi-day race? What year was that and what race was it?
Whoa, hard to say what year was that. But I remember very well my first 200 kilometers. I don't know if it's big enough, but because we did it only in 3-person team because we couldn't find a female part. Mm-hmm. So I remember this, I think, because it was a struggle in terms of teamwork. I remember at some point we had a different motivation. One of us didn't want to continue, and somehow it was kind of a breakthrough. It was the longest distance, 200 kilometers, mm-hmm. And also a lot of important experiences. But let's say the really big one was 400 kilometers winter race in Poland, in the region called Mazury, famous from its lakes. It's north east of Poland. And it was back then, I think, European Series rounds. There used to be something like this, Adventure Racing European Series. I think it's not happening anymore. So we had some teams from abroad, among them Estonian team, who is now, of course, very famous. Mm-hmm. And this race, what I can say about it, the distance for us was huge. I mean, 400 kilometers, it's a lot. And
in the winter.
In winter conditions, now when I go biking and it's -10, I really can't understand why I did that back then.
We've all been there.
Because the temperatures in the night were dropping, even until -15 or -20 in the night. So this was a good Polish winter, and racing in these conditions. I remember falling on my bike on the ice, hitting my head pretty hard. Of course, I had a helmet, but still, you feel the impact. And what is maybe very interesting about these big races is what happens after. So again, people often ask me, okay, how long do you recover after the race? And for now, I'm happy to be privileged with my health and fitness. I think I recover pretty fast in terms of my body. If there was no injury and nothing serious happened, I need to get back to work. I need to get back to keep moving on the court and stuff. So that's not a big problem for me. But I always feel this kind of mental drop in my mood. For example, back then I remember I had like 1 month when I didn't want to go running or go biking or do anything that I normally do with pleasure and smile on my face. it was just kind of a little bit depressive mood. And now after the Philippines, I must say it came back to me because, this was my first time in Asia. It was my first time in this kind of climate. So winning the second place in the Philippines and all these new experiences, I'm sure it was for my body and for my mind like huge dose of everything. And when I came back to so-called normal life, I really felt low for a few weeks. And yeah, this is very interesting. Not such a nice part maybe of this what we are doing, but yeah, something you need to deal with.
Yeah, the Philippines race was the one that attracted me to speak to you. And we're going to get into your race experience in a second, because I love the idea of someone who's raced in Europe, raced in Poland, all of a sudden going into Asia and racing in a brand new setting. And so I really want to dig into that race. So get ready to get your brain going to talk about the transitions, all of that. But I want to talk a bit about the idea of the post race drop, right? Of the and that's a very, very, very common for all adventure racers that they feel that. But I think it's also a byproduct of human nature, right? I think all of us, we work hard in our jobs, and we go through the day-to-day life, feeding ourselves, taking care of our families, and the monotony of having to like actually work to eat, right? A lot of us have to do that. No one sits at home and just, lets the money roll in. We have to do those things. And so we kind of save up our money, we save up our emotional energy, we save up our physical energy, and we pour ourselves into a big thing. And that thing comes and that thing goes. And then all of a sudden it's a Monday morning, right? And you're back at your desk and it's kind of gray outside, and the next thing is really, really far away. That's why it's not uncommon for many endurance athletes, adventure racers included, to actually sign up for their next race soon after the last race is done. Like they need to have something on the horizon, because just to be aimless is not a good thing for people with those personalities.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a case. And, in any sport, when you're more into, as a coach, I always say, find yourself a goal, find yourself a competition, because then you're striving for this, and then you have it on your map, you have it in your calendar, and, this keeps you going. And maybe in adventure racing, because it's so demanding, this effect is even bigger.
Yes.
So as I said, you're getting so much input on a race that it's incomparable to your everyday life. And
right.
Yeah, I totally agree that's the part of our nature, that we are seeking for this stimulation. Let's use this word, and then when it's gone, you feel this. Oh, something's missing. So I think here we are touching this important point of, okay, is there something dangerous about it? And I think, like with any other sport, you can be addicted to doing this. And as a philosopher, I say, okay, everyone is addicted to something. So why not adventure racing? There are many more worse addictions than adventure racing. So that's my choice.
You are, and you, as a philosopher, and there's a whole conversation to be had around personality profiles and what adventure racing gives to us. And if, I the way I kind of look at it over time is, a lot of us, we're kind of like a cannon, right? We're going to go off. It's the direction we point ourselves. It's the thing that we find ourselves doing. And so there are many, that personality profile, when it comes to addiction, and it comes to I'll use the term obsessiveness, and that's a big word to use, that many of us, and I will put myself in this camp in full disclosure, that we take enjoyment out of being incredibly motivated and focused by a big thing. And it scratches a part of our soul. That's a good thing. But like with anything else in life, there's also the bad side to that too. Right. Yeah. And so I think the use of the word addiction, I think that's a fair word to use. And I think there's a whole conversation. I've always thought a lot about it, and there's a lot of literature about it, about the crossover of that personality profile in ultra endurance sports. And that very often people find relief from the more personal challenges by burying themselves into a sport like this. The downside is, and I give this as a word of caution for people, is that ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just a sport. And eventually your body may not be able to let you do it any longer. So you better have a backup plan, because if your knees go bad and your shoulders go bad and all of a sudden you get knocked out of your sport, it's really hard then to like, where's the rest of your dynamic? Where's the rest of your life? I think there's so much to talk about that. And if there's a sports psychologist out there listening and you want to talk about it, feel free to reach out to me, because I'd be really interested to dig into that a little bit more. But I agree with you. I agree with you about the big event, the post-race letdown, finding the next thing and choosing a thing to be into. And for many people, this is their thing. This is their lifestyle. And clearly you've done that. That's a large part of who you are. And that's how you see the world.
Yeah, exactly. When we were talking, you were asking often about this aspect of transitioning from, doing small races to this, and also transitioning in my motivation. So I think that's exactly answering this topic, that at the beginning, you're trying to prove, you're checking yourself, you're trying to reach some borders, and asking the question, where is this border for me? Where is this border for a human being? Yeah, that's my general interest. But at some point, you kind of feel that, okay, this is not only something I want to do; it's actually a part of who I am, and right. You start doing this, as we mentioned, as a part of your lifestyle. And it's important to keep the balance. I really like what you said, that you need to always have in the back of your head that maybe at some point I will not be able, and then, what then? So this is not easy for anyone, I think, to have such a situation, let's say injury, which will make you unable to compete. But what can help, or what can be useful, I think, for all of us is exactly to stay aware of this risk, to stay, thoughtful and keep on from time to time doing a self-check. Why I'm doing this? What's my motivation? If I'm maybe not overreacting, with amount of training, with like family, work, adventure racing balance. Yeah. So it's just, I think it's important to remember about it when you start racing more and more and doing expedition races, which are, as the name suggests, are big logistic endeavors that need not only long training period, but just simply, you need 2 or 3 weeks out of your life for a big expedition race.
Yeah, I think also a part of human nature comes alive here is that the reason why you become something is not the reason why you stay something, right? And so people might have become an adventure racer because they have things to prove to themselves. They want to check those boxes off. It appeals to them. But the reason why they stay in adventure racing over a long period of time, they've met that initial satisfaction, and something else keeps them in the sport. And I think a large part of that, as I've seen through the Dark Zone interviews and knowing adventure racers, is that the people who are embedded in the sport over time, that they truly enjoy the community that comes from it. They enjoy seeing the people, they enjoy the personalities and the dynamic and feeling like a part of something, right? And we, I think human nature is such is that we're social creatures, right? Yeah. And the reason why we survived was that we could form ourselves into these social units, and we could work together to carry ourselves forward. And I think adventure racing appeals in that way to many people over time, is that they like the people and the personalities that they have. It's always more than the race itself, right? It's what it gives us and the experience. And then we have a chance to sit and to talk about the racing and to kind of live inside that community and be a part of this thing. Shifting gears now from Poland to the Philippines and coming in second in that race. And so I really want to talk about the granular nature of that race. It was the Asia, Philippines, the terrain, all of that. So let's begin, obviously, at the beginning. How did you hear about La Routa in the Philippines, and what was it like getting a team together? And then walk us through your planning for the race, and what was it like when you arrived on site?
Okay, so it started in Poland. End of June, we took part in an expedition race in Beskid mountain region in Poland, on the border with Czech Republic and Slovakia. It was 600 kilometers, So this was my longest finished.
And what was the name of that race?
Ever. Sorry?
And the race, what was that race's name again?
Beskide. Adventure Race Beskide. And
yes.
It was
that was a big race.
It was a demonstration race of World Series.
That was a big. I read it. I followed that online. That the hell. So let's not get to the Philippines. Let's get to that race first. That was a big race.
It was a big race. Sleep Monster did a lot of coverage from that one. And unfortunately, there were not many teams. There were only 5 teams on a main course. But this was a demonstration race. Maybe not everyone was trustful enough to come to Poland for 600 kilometers. But in this moment, I really want to recommend it to all the racers that are listening us, because next year it's going to be qualifier in the World Series.
I absolutely agree with you. It was funny. I was, you pay attention to adventure racing media, and all of a sudden I was like, what's this race in Poland? Then all of a sudden it was like this huge race, and it was great coverage on it. So I agree with you. So for folks out there looking to get a big experience, Beshki, put that on your radar as a future race, because they did really, really well there. That was a great start to them. And congratulations getting moved into the regular ARWS circuit. So how did that race go for your team?
Yeah. So my team, we finished 3rd place out of 5 teams, but still it's a podium place. So we were very happy about it.
Sure.
And the winning team, Nonstop Adventure, they won entry fee for the Philippines. So that was the deal. But they couldn't go in the whole squad. So a team captain, Maszka Janerka, she asked me if I'm interested in going with them to the Philippines. So basically they needed two members. And they asked if I'm interested, and almost immediately, I said yes, I'm in, and this is how it started. Because
I laugh because that's what it's like. Do you want to? Yes. Like the sentence doesn't even finish. I'll go get my gear. Because
many years ago I had similar situation that colleagues of mine, so another team, asked me to join them for a big race. Also in Asia, and I said no because I had some other obligations, and I really regret that decision back then. And I said to myself, when it's going to happen again, I will say yes.
You got to go, right? Exactly. We all have those moments, right, Rafael? Yes. I should have said yes. And so we tend to get involved in that really quickly. Okay.
So, this came, and the challenging thing was, we knew each other from adventure racing scene from Poland. But we never raced together. We never did a training together. And I live in Berlin, Germany. They live in Poland, also not in one location, not all of them. So this was difficult. We definitely wanted to try to find time for training together, but we didn't. So meeting at the airport in Warsaw was our first real team meeting.
Yeah, that happens all the time. That people meet at the race course, and let's go do a 100-kilometer race, and having met the first time. So the first time you met was in Poland in the airport.
Yeah. First time that we met, they are like knowing that we're gonna race together. But of course, we did some online meetings, and we discussed a lot logistics, but also our approach to the race, what we want to achieve, and. This was very clear for us that maybe on this race we have a chance to fight for a good position, right? Because we are all quite experienced racers, and the prize for winning Philippines was a spot in World Championships in Ecuador next year. So that was our motivation, and so we met in Warsaw. We had a short
Who were your teammates? Who were the 4 people on the team?
Yeah, so Maszka Janerka, she was our team captain. One of the strongest, if not the strongest, racer in Poland. Then Stanisław Odróbka and Artur Moran. Stanisław, if I may, one sentence about each of them. Stanisław has a strong triathlon background. He's also a physical education teacher. Arthur, in general, also was doing a lot of navigation, and it's like, outdoor person. So again, kind of lifestyle racer. And yeah, Maszka, really strong runner, but also in our small Polish ranking, actually she is for this year number 1. So yeah.
And what was your team name for that race?
Non-stop Adventure.
Non-stop Adventure. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the team with quite a long history. And Maszka and Stanisław, they are like regular members of this team for some years, and they were in the winning team in Beskid in the Polish mountains.
Got it.
And they took me and Arthur as a new members.
All to the Philippines. Okay, and so you all met. So that's an interesting dynamic for you that they had raced together, they knew each other, and here you are coming on as a newer member of the team.
Yes. And I can't say I was afraid, but of course I knew it can be challenging because you gotta spend a few days with each other in extreme conditions, and that's obvious. But here we are, and the atmosphere at the beginning was super nice. We were all motivated, happy to do it, but also. Yeah, the logistic was quite stressful because, we needed to travel with our bikes. We had a certain weight limit for all the flights and stuff like this. So this logistic before the race was quite tricky, especially because La Routa doesn't give you a race scheme.
Right.
So you don't know if you're going to do 100 kilometers on the bike, or if you're going to do 200.
Wow. So there was no pre-race schematic where they broke down
no pre-race schematic. We knew the total distance will be around 350K. And that's basically all.
Just to show up with your gear. Good luck. Okay.
And we knew we will have to swim. Mm-hmm. And, it makes a big difference if swimming may be like 500 meters once. Or if it's going to be 2 kilometers open sea, back and forth and again. Mm-hmm. This has influence on some decisions about the gear and stuff like that. So this was problematic, but yeah, we took it as a part of a challenge.
Right.
Try to squeeze our gear. We had a short trip in China. We went to visit the Great Wall because we had like 12 hours in Beijing. So
you were there. You got to go. Right.
Yeah. But okay, going to the Philippines, the first impression when we get out of the plane was like you entering sauna.
Right, it was hot, right? Humid.
It was hot and humid. So we walked through the airport and we are all sweating already, not because of stress connected with our bikes, but that's maybe too, because, we were hoping that they arrived.
Right. Did they make it? Did they make it? Did they make it? Right. Your fingers are crossed. Please God, I see my bikes.
To the right country.
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely a little shock for us. The climate, the feeling, the air, and from Manila, so the capital, the Philippines, we traveled to Tacloban, a smaller town on another island, and from there. We were squeezed to a minivan, which was definitely not prepared for 4 bike boxes and 4 racers, but we somehow squeezed inside and travel 2 or 3 hours to Naval, a small town where the race center was located.
How many teams were in the race?
14 teams, most of them from Asia. We were, I like to say, most exotic team. And a part of us, there was a New Zealand team.
Gotcha. Team Fear Youth was there.
Were Malaysia, India, Japan, Philippines.
So that's a pretty wild experience. So, I mean, the hardest part about getting to the race is getting to the race, right? And the gear and the box. And you go from, Poland, You mean in Warsaw, you fly into China, China into the Philippines, Philippines into the van. And we've all been there where we're sitting in the van where our bags are stacked around us, right? And you're literally sitting there with like, it's the safest van in the world because all of your gear is padding you 3 hours in the van. So how was the team feeling all that travel, getting to the race start? And how much time was there between your arrival and the start of the race?
I think in total from arriving to the Philippines, we had like 3 days.
Okay, that's a nice amount of time
to
get your gear sorted.
We were able to do one little training together the first day when we arrived to Naval. The second day, go biking, go walking a bit around the jungle, and yeah, actually this biking uphill at the second day. This was really instructive, I would say, because you could feel how your body behaved, how much I'm sweating in these conditions, for example, which was for me interesting because, I'm a small guy and I everyone needs to drink, but I drink relatively less than my friend who is like 2 times bigger. And, to get me really sweating, it's not so easy. But there, I was constantly wet. I was drinking like never before, So these are important things that you may not, that you simply don't know until you do it, until you feel how your body reacts on this conditions. Yeah. So always, whenever you can, come a little bit earlier, especially if the race is in another part of the world. Do it if you can take two days more. This is definitely something.
Yeah,
we should
having some time to adjust is huge over time. Yes. So now you get into you get there, you get yourself settled. You're starting to acclimate to the heat and to all that's coming into your life now. So tell us a bit about the race itself. When did you find out the maps? How did you stage your gear? I mean, logistically speaking, we take such big bites as adventure racers of what we do and what we prepare for. It's hard. It's hard to get started off on the right foot. Walk us through the pre-race briefings. Like when did you get the full maps for the race? How many hours before?
Yeah, we get the maps on the evening, the day before the race starts. So the race starts around 9 or 10 a.m. and we get the map. Yeah, in the evening, I think, or like late afternoon, 17, 18. So we had the whole night for the maps, and this was crucial because we got the maps without the checkpoints mark on them.
Okay.
And we still didn't, obviously, because we still had access to technology. So that's not allowed to have the checkpoints when you have access to your phone and whatsoever. So we got the maps without the checkpoints, but we still didn't get any road book or schema. But we get a task. Guys, you need to draw geographical grid on your maps. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's the squares. The squares, the 1 kilometer squares.
Because they were not there. And you're gonna need them because a lot of the clues for the localization of the checkpoint you will get in form of coordinates.
You like UTM plotting.
So none of the checkpoint on the race during the race was marked on your map or any other map. All the checkpoints we needed to mark by ourselves based on either coordinates or some other funny tasks, like, imagine. So checkpoint 7, checkpoint 1, and checkpoint X create a triangle, and on the crossing of the lines, you will find the checkpoint Epsilon. So there was a lot of old school navigational kind of scouting, work with the maps. And this was very challenging. This was difficult. This was definitely something special about this race, something that many of us were not ready for.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of. My head would pop off.
And then you need to remember, you need to draw the grid by yourself. So if you do a mistake for a few millimeters, and you're going to do a mistake of a few millimeters by making some funny calculation on the map, you can end up searching point far away.
You're completely in the wrong place. Like you're nowhere, and there's no. So how did you know? So when you got to a transition area, there were like numbers on a wall, like here's your coordinates. Like there was no master map that you would like. You have to do.
Yeah, we were just getting after each stage or before each stage, we were getting the clues, which were describing where the next checkpoints are, and these were either coordinates or some other things.
So here you are now, Poland to the Philippines, super hot, a lot of travel, do your own coordinates.
Yes.
Good luck. So what was the team's stress level going into the race? How was everybody sort of feeling at the start?
Yeah, and this is the amazing thing, because we were all very, very motivated and, kind of, complaining about it because, it's not what we were expecting and stuff. And the maps, unfortunately, they were not best quality. I need to mention it because, it's part of fun and it's part of the local taste of the race, but it's not good when it's becoming more about luck than your skill, right? So if it's about who's going to have luck to find a little path, or who's going to ask some local and will get a proper advice from some locals, then it's killing a bit the competition. And unfortunately, this was the case in few moments on this race. So definitely for the future, the quality of maps should be improved, just in order not to kill the competition and not to kill the feeling that it's about my skills and my team's skills.
And there's a fine line, right? You want it to be hard and difficult enough that it's a challenge for everybody, but not so difficult that the factors are outside the team's control. That's the balance right there.
That's the thing. But we were, as I said, trying to take everything as it was and take it as a part of the challenge, and really used our brain hard to handle this, because imagine this was a beautiful picture out of the race in the middle of the jungle trekking. It's night, it's dark, we are somewhere, as I said, somewhere in the middle of the jungle. We're reaching the checkpoint where the referees are waiting for us under a small tarp. It's raining, but they are there, so we already have a big respect for them for spending many hours in the middle of the jungle under the little tarp waiting for us. And we are super tired. It's like the middle of the second day. And we have to do some mathematical calculation on our map with our headlamps in the rain. Maps were not waterproof. We needed to use the tape before. So the night before was all about maps. We put the protective tape all over the maps to make them waterproof somehow. So we needed to do this calculation in these circumstances. Being hungry, being tired, and this was an amazing challenge. And I remember, we needed quite a big rule to measure all these funny things on the map, and the rule broke. So we glued the ruler with a duct tape. So
it's safe to say that you got your money's worth out of this race.
So these are these amazing little things you need to be prepared for. But despite all of this, we were going through the race, and the beginning was not very fortunate for us because I couldn't really feel the scale of the first map. And many teams were struggling already on the first orienteering around the city, because I didn't mention that the maps were also 70 years old.
Oh, okay.
So for the small town in the Philippines, it means you have 3 times more cities, 5 times more roads, and sure, terrain stayed as it was. That's always the thing. You need to focus on the landscape, but so we finished the first stage of the race, I think as a 12 or 13 team. So we are almost on the very end.
Okay.
So this was terrible feeling, especially when we were coming there with ambition to,
Yeah, I've been there. I know the feeling. You get in the transition area and all the other bikes are gone.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, been there. Yep, more than once.
But then we just that's important. I think we didn't even think about giving up, and we were holding a team spirit and pushing, and we did a biking section very fast, and then was the swimming part. And Stanisław from our team, he's a rescue swimmer, so he was kind of also coaching us. Very nice, because there was like around 1 kilometer to swim through the other island, open sea.
Sure.
We needed to drag our bags in the dry bags with us. So kind of challenging swimming section, but we did it very well. We were, we took a good angle to swim, because you always need to think about the wind and the wave.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So after the swimming stage and like little coastering, we were already at the 7th position. So we knew, okay, we are back in the race. We did well. And there was this tricky rule that at certain transition area, only first 5 teams stay on a long course.
The first 5. So not even like time. Like if
in the race it was called elite category. So first 5 teams are allowed to continue on the full course. Yeah.
So how far into the race was that cutoff? Was it a day? Was it 2 days?
I think it was around 24 hours. I think it was the second.
The second full day.
Second transition area.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So after swimming, we knew we still have like a bit of biking, which was not so difficult. I mean, little up and downs, but not through the jungle, and longer trekking through the jungle.
How many stages total did the race have? How many different transitions?
You see, because I don't have a race schema in my head,
it's all one big blur.
I can't give you this answer.
Well, that's the expression in adventure racing. There's the first day, and then there's the last day, and there's everything in between, right? There's only 2 days that matter in adventure racing.
Yeah, because this was challenging but interesting concept that you are, and the race director, Jason, was stressing it, that for him, that's the fun, that you coming to the transition area and you don't know what to expect. You don't know if it's going to be like this long or this long, and you need to do so a lot of logistics.
So when you showed up I have to pause you real quickly. Yeah. So when you showed up at a TA, because there was no race schematic, so you would get into a TA, you would ride your bicycles in, and you'd arrive there. You would then find at that point how long the next section was. Like you wouldn't know in advance.
Yeah. so
this race.
Yeah, the boxes with the gear, we knew we're gonna have access to them on few transition areas, because they were transition areas where we didn't have any gear, like for example before swimming. So after the running part, we needed to take our swimming gear, like fins, we were using fins, dry bags, bike with them to the coast, and then do the swimming. And there was no like extra gear for us. So you needed to be ready for this.
All your stuff, right? You had to have your food, your gear, like they weren't waiting for you. And I'm assuming remote was you were out there in the jungle, and like were you going through towns? Was there any civilization, or were you just out there by yourselves?
There was quite a lot of little towns, and like possibility to buy food, to buy water, but not on the trekking sections. Trekking sections were really wild, were really the jungle sections, but they were not crazy long, except of one of our big mistake, which is, I guess, already famous. I don't know if you want to switch to this one.
Go for it.
Yeah, on the last trekking section, we knew we are second after Team New Zealand. It was night. We already had like short 20 minutes nap, but we knew the team New Zealand was sleeping a bit longer, so they're probably more fresh than we were. But second place, okay, we are in the almost in the lead. You know, we can fight for the best place. So we keep going, and then I think we had a really nice navigational variant. We make a much shorter road than New Zealand. It's funny because it's only came to me after the race when I could see the tracking, because of the map, because of the situation, I thought we are struggling because we ended up in one other village until we reached another village. But in the end, I later saw that we did this quite well. So this was a good navigation, good teamwork. But after this checkpoint that we found as a first team, so that was the moment where we took the lead for a moment. We took the lead. We arrived for the checkpoint as the first team. Motivation level is
sure. Now you're and you're near the end. Sure.
And then we knew, okay, next checkpoint is a special task. And I can't tell you, but I think the straight line to the checkpoint was around 1 kilometer. Or maybe I'm overreacting. I have a map somewhere there, but maybe 1.5. Let's say between 1 and 2 kilometers.
Relatively close.
Really close. And we couldn't. Okay, first I do some very stupid, out of excitement, I guess, navigational mistake. Okay, let's go back, try again.
It happens.
We try again. It doesn't work because the terrain is so simply so difficult. You know, you can't just cross the forest. It's not a forest; it's a jungle.
Yeah,
so
it's thick and there's no path.
You just can't go through vegetation as you want. It's impossible. And then we do not have any straight path to the point. And we, at some point, after already a few hours of searching, we realized that my marking of the checkpoints was like, I think that the point is down in the canyon. But my friend, Arthur, who was navigating as well, he thought the checkpoint is above the canyon. So like on the, how to say it?
Up on the ridge.
Yeah, up on the ridge. And maybe we're searching for some rock or something, as it's supposed to be a special task. So, and we only realized it after a few hours that we are actually navigating to different points. Yeah.
And you were looking to go 1.5 kilometers, and now you're talking hours.
And then again, what I mentioned before, it was very easy to have a few millimeters mistake here, a few millimeters mistake here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what happened on the canyon, because you have the terrain lines like very close to each other, and few millimeters make a big difference because it's down there or it's up here.
Right.
And we're slowly getting tired. We had a emergency situation. We got stung by giant Asian hornets. Yeah. So
not just any hornets. Giant Asian hornets.
Yes. I got 2 bites, and Mashka, she got 8.
Oh.
And believe me, it was really painful.
You get near the end of the race too, so you're pretty beat up. You're tired, you're hungry, you're wet.
It's like, we are struggling to find this checkpoint, and then this happened. Okay, we reacted pretty fast. I'm really happy about this. We had antihistamine medicine. We had like cream with cortisol. This was nice to see that we had this, that we were prepared for such a situation was good, and we managed. No one get the allergic reaction, which could definitely happen.
Okay, yeah, sure. With that much over time, 8 bites and that quickly could overpower someone's system.
Yeah, but we survived this. Okay, we continue another hour, another variant. We try to go down to the canyon from another side and follow the river, but at some point it's impossible. The river is too wild. There was a small waterfall we couldn't cross. We tried to go up the canyon and then back to the river again, but it's too difficult. And one of our teammates got seriously overheated. Like all in a sudden, he starts, bumbling and
a little delirious, a little beaten up, might not know where he is.
Okay. he got a cut off, and we need to take him back to this nearest village. And this was a very critical moment because I thought he might not be able to continue because the weather is still around. It was from, I think, 28 to 35.
And wet, humid, right.
And humid. So you're constantly wet. So yeah, we went down to the stream. We cooled him down. It was possible to go back to the village to where was the last checkpoint. We took a sleep there, like 3 hours. Luckily, his fever, we gave him some medicines. Luckily, his fever was gone. He said he wants to continue. So definitely that was a moment after this Hornets, after this overheating, after being already more than 10 hours searching for this point. That was the moment when we felt like,
And you thought, and going into that moment, you felt you were second place, dancing around first place. So yeah. What an incredible challenge for your team that you were so deep into the race, and then the navigational challenges, the exhaustion, the heat, the giant Asian Hornets. So how did you work your way through it? How did it end up?
Yeah, that's hard to explain, but I think really this kind of mixture of our personalities and high level of motivation, it really worked out well because, as I said, we didn't have experience as a team before. So taking this into account, it's really amazing that we survived such a moment.
That bonds you.
That no one starts throwing shit on one another, bad decision, bad this, you are too weak, whatever.
Yeah.
We stayed strong, we stayed team, we kept on trying. Then I did one other variant to the checkpoint, and I failed again. We ran out of batteries even because we were not prepared for such a long night in the jungle. We lost one lamp because I fell into the river and the stream took my headlamp. So you can imagine it's all growing to a very extreme situation. And then in the very end, we decided to take a very round road to the checkpoint, which was at the beginning ridiculous from the navigational
from a distance perspective, right? It was safe, but it was long, right?
Yeah. And we realized that we're still a second team. So this kind of
you're thinking you're like the last. You're thinking it's over. Like you're gonna walk into transition. They're packing their gear up. The race is over, right? You're like they left you behind. Meanwhile, hours later, you're still second place. I want to come back quickly. You said something interesting a second ago that the team they could have fractured, right? The team could have fallen apart. You could have cannibalized each other, and you didn't, right? And in that moment, four relative strangers, I know they knew each other previously. You worked together as a team. How did it feel to finally get to that checkpoint after taking the long road and still being in second? What was that like?
Yeah, that was definitely amazing and happy moment, and you feel that we did well. We survived. Exactly that. You have this feeling that there was everything you need to quit the race. Mm-hmm. After making another bad navigational decision, I was really down. I also felt like, okay, now actually, guys, now you are really welcome to criticize me.
Yep.
But they didn't. Didn't. And we found our way out, and we arrived at the checkpoint, and the staff there waiting with the special task. They were super happy to see us. And the special task was a small rope descending. It went quite smooth, although we were doing it in the night, so also not the easiest moment. And then after the special task, the third team arrives to the task. So the racing mode is on again.
Right, exactly. You're getting hunted.
Yeah, we kind of felt, okay, New Zealand is probably out of our reach, but despite our difficulties, we can hold the second place. That's cool. Let's continue. Let's keep on fighting. We already had an idea that race in total might be shortened because none of the teams could go fast enough. And I think the biggest problem were the maps. Not of the team could go fast enough in order to cover all 300.
It was such they had to cut parts of the course. It was such a long race, and it was so difficult.
Yeah, so we knew there are going to be some cuts, but okay, we still want to fight for this place, and they're just behind us. So again, we try to keep we try to go a little bit faster than the last many hours.
Right.
And this was like the last trekking section for us. Here, one interesting story again. So we navigate for another point. The checkpoints that we need to mark by ourselves on the map to remind you.
With your broken ruler.
Yes. And the clue for this checkpoint was some kind of description that leads you to understand that the checkpoint will be 2,000 meters down the stream from another checkpoint. So you need to measure the stream, find the right place. The scale of the map was not standard scale, so it was like 43,000 something. So,
wow.
I have my curve meter, the little gear to measure the distance.
Yep.
But I couldn't use it so precisely because of this funny scale.
Right.
So again, funny calculations. It seems like the point should be there, okay, because it's a crossroad of the stream and the road. Okay, yeah, we go there. So we arrived. I'm 100% sure we are in the right place. I'm 100% sure. Okay, here is the river that somehow became very small. But navigationally, I'm really sure that's the place. I'm saying to the team, please give me like 5 minutes. I just walk a bit up the stream to look around if everything is correct. But I'm really sure it should be there. And, you are not allowed to split. So they just were walking the same direction with me up the stream. But I was like running forward to just make sure everyone that, checkpoint is there. And then the other friend has an idea. Let's go a little bit further down the road. And the checkpoint was there. So where is my 100%, being sure that the checkpoint was in the place before? So here is the deal. I marked the point down the stream as I should. So we managed the clue correctly. But during the 70 years time, they built another, canal right. for the river. So basically, the road of the river changed during the last 70 years. And
right.
The proper river was crossing the road higher than it was on the map.
Right.
So, these kind of problems with navigation, we were having all the time, or very often during the race. So I think that's in the end made it longer than anyone supposed.
Right. And it's funny and you make a good point about the idea of that you want an appropriate challenge, but there's a point in which the challenge, it boils more down to luck, right? The fact that because you walk down that part of the river, you came across it, and all of a sudden you're trying to guess things and how things change over time. And so you're right about that. I just can't imagine being that deep into the race, the hornets, the exhaustion, the batteries, the headlamp being gone, and you're still, what day was this in the race?
Now the fourth day of the race is about to start. So it's early in the morning. We arrive from the checkpoint where we know, okay, we need to do some short course,
right? Because
basically the limit for the race is coming ahead,
right?
But there was a communication problem because the guys on the checkpoints, the organizers, they couldn't reach via mobile network the organizers because there was no signal in this place.
Right.
So again, the remoteness, even though we were in some small village, it is a remote village. There was no
Yeah.
So
There's
they
no cell
couldn't.
service. There's no phones.
Yeah,
Right.
they couldn't tell us. We wanted to get the information. What should we do? If what's the rule now? Because that's normal in adventure racing. Okay, that sometimes because of the conditions things change, and we wanted to know if the maybe time limit is a little bit extended.
Right.
If we should try to get some checkpoints, or if we should go directly to the finish line. So we needed to make this tricky decision again, knowing that the next team, the Malaysian team, is not so far behind us.
Right. And so you could have made the decision to go into the finish line thinking you're up against a time constraint. They could have stayed out there longer, gotten more checkpoints. You could have done what you thought was the right thing, but they could have beat you on points.
Exactly. That was the struggle we had, and we had a really different opinions about it in the team. But in the end, we decided to get one more checkpoint, because the last checkpoint from this stage seems to be ridiculously far on the map, and we would never do it.
Right.
But then we thought, maybe it's a bad mathematics or geometrical skills from us again. So we tried again, because that was the funny point where you needed to do, I'm not sure if that's the right name, triangulate. When you have 3 points and you need to make
You're right.
a line that crosses at some point based on a particular angle.
Right. It's like the world's worst school math problem.
And it's really funny to do it after, a 2.5 day of racing.
Oh, I would be useless. I would be full disclosure. You don't want to do this race. I'll carry all your gear. Give me your pack. Give me all your stuff. Don't let me anywhere near that map, because we'll be in the ocean. So yes.
So we did it again, and we find out that actually the last checkpoint is closer than we previously thought.
Right.
And we compare with the other team, just to support each other in this struggle. We compare if they mark the checkpoint in the similar spot. And that was the case. So we knew we are able to take one more checkpoint. So we're pushing for it. Somewhere along the way, we get the information that, yes, that's the idea now, that we need to grab one more checkpoint and then go to the transition area, grab our bikes, and have 18 kilometers back to the finish line. So quickly about these 2 checkpoints, because this was actually interesting. Mm-hmm. The last trekking point was on 1,000-meter high hill. I think it was one of the highest points of the race. And as I said, the day started, so it was slowly getting to noon, and it was a day without rain, but with a lot of sun. So again, the heat played a big part. On the road, on the map, the road looked like, it might be 4 kilometers. But after 70 years, again, you have a new asphalt path which goes, round and round, and it was like 8 kilometers instead of 4.
Right.
So we
hot.
run up.
Sun's out, black asphalt.
So the time, and you go up, and the heat, and we run out of water. And what do you do in the Philippines? You find a coconut. So coconuts, bananas, and mangoes, there were like abundance of it. So if you find of these 3 things, the Philippines is your place. So I grabbed one coconut.
I like the idea, like you're racing and you're pulling things off trees, right?
Yeah, basically we ate the mango we found, and then I took this coconut and it's full. I asked a lady that was working somewhere on a plantation if she could open this for me, because the real coconuts, they do not have they don't just crack open. Right.
They're at walnuts.
So she took out her machete, which is like 2 sides of my head. She cut the top of the coconut.
By the way, was she looking at you like you were a Martian? Like all of a sudden, like a Polish guy walking out of the woods with a coconut. We
were definitely an interesting guys.
They're still talking about you to this day.
Yeah. But she was very nice to me. She cut it, smiled to me, gave me the coconut, and we were enjoying this a lot. Also, some local kids were following us because we were going through some small villages, and they also brought us some coconuts. So basically, coconuts and hospitality of locals really helped us to survive this last uphill trek. On the way down, we met the Malaysian teams. So yeah, we knew they are chasing us. And unfortunately, they were looking much better because my friends, not Mashka, but the guys, they got really bad blisters. And Arthur, who got dehydrated the day before and overheated, you could see that he's strongly struggling with the heat.
Right.
And it's difficult to keep the pace. Then we trekked through the city in this terrible sun. We reached the transition area, and now we know, okay, we just need to grab the bikes and bike 18 kilometers back to the finish line, and we will have the second place. We reached the transition area. We want to do it pretty fast, but you know how it is. Sometimes you can't keep going, but then when you stop for a moment, everything hits you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Stasio, he had this nice idea of buying like a package of ice in a shop just before the transition area. And that's funny because I was at the beginning a little bit pissed on him because I thought, like, man, we don't have time now for this kind of things. Right. But in the end, this was a super, super good idea because we used this package of ice to cool down our friend, Arthur. We put some crushed ice under his helmet, on his neck. Yep. So, these are these survival outdoor skills that you kind of have somewhere in the back of your head, and they are so useful in adventure racing reality. So we were basically cooling him down like a overheated engine.
Yeah.
And then the Malaysian teams coming to the transition area. And they doing everything as they should. They are like super quick. They just drop their gear, change, put the helmet, and they're off.
Oh, that's a killer.
Yeah, that's the killer. And so we stand up. Again, we left, I think, 5 minutes after them on the bikes. Arthur was walking straight. So, good. Okay, we are safe to go. Biking mostly through the villages now. But 5 minutes, 18 kilometers, they know they are pushing for second place. I was skeptical, but we start biking. We really, again, had a super nice team spirit. We, bike in a tunnel. You say in English?
Yep, in a line. You're behind each other, right? You're in a pace line.
Very close. After one after another, tipping whoever feels weaker in the middle. Right. Changing on the lead, pushing, motivating.
Yeah, rotating through, breaking the wind. Right. Sharing the effort.
We really, this was amazing. And at some point, we see Malaysian team, they got a flat tire.
Oh, no. Holy cow.
So super bad luck for them. But for us, it was like, again, dopamine, it's possible. Mm-hmm. We push, wave to them, we push, and we continue this biking. I think we were reaching over 35 kilometers per hour. So on the third day of the race in this heat, this was amazing fast for us, and the experience of Stasio from triathlon was also very, very useful back then to keep the pace, to keep the nice rhythm on the biking. And we go through the naval town, like really passing everything that moves: cars, rickshaw, bikes, people. He's keep on whistling, Mm-hmm. I mentioned he's a swimming rescue, so he could whistle louder than I can scream.
Right.
So it was a really, really a little show that we gave at the very finish. And yeah, we get to the finish line. We knew we are on the second place after 77 hours and around 300 kilometers.
Wow. And it was day 4?
Yeah, 77 hours.
77 hours. Holy cow. But I just, I'm exhausted hearing about it.
Sorry if that was too much detail.
No, it was the Dark Zone's all about the stories, Raf. You did a great job. Have no fear. Holy cow. Like second, I know the Malaysian team gets a flat on the way to the finish.
Yeah.
And cost them second place. Sometimes it's a beautiful, cruel sport. Oh my goodness. Oh my. So it sounds like the four of you bonded really well during the course of the race, that you kind of held it together. And I'm sure you all had your moments. That happens in racing, right? There's, what happens on the course stays on the course. Sometimes we go at each other in moments of stress, but it sounds like you as a team, you really came together during all of that.
Yeah, exactly. This was wonderful, and at the same time, no one could. We were hoping for that, but no one could expect that it's gonna work out so well.
Right.
As I said, we had a really critical moment, but somehow we were really playing them well as a team. And how to explain it? If we don't have an experience together, what decided about it? And I mentioned something about all of us had this experience. All of us had maybe this personality traits developed enough to know that the quality of the team and the well-being of the team is the most important part if we want to first survive, second finish the race, and third fight for the top places.
And that's the example of experience over strength.
Yeah,
right. And it was, you can be as strong as you want, but if psychologically, if mentally, if team wise, if you're not in the right place, doesn't matter how fast you could cycle, how high you could climb. If you can't hold it together psychologically as a team, you're going to go nowhere.
Definitely. Yeah.
So so how long did you sleep after the race ended? How many hours?
I don't remember.
It's all one big blur.
But long. Yeah, we had a 2 days extra to spend in the Philippines, so we traveled a bit more south. Because Mashka is a big fan of diving, so she really wanted to do it. Okay. And me and the guys, we were just happy with staying longer in bed and doing some snorkeling. That was enough for us.
When the race is over, the race is over.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm good.
I think the biggest issue was in terms of recovery, feet.
Yeah,
because of the humid conditions, our feet got pretty wasted,
pretty chopped up, right? Yeah, that's just. Because you were probably wet the entire race. You probably got wet at 77 hour one, and you were 77 hours later, you were still wet.
I would risk a statement that from 77 hours we were 65 hours wet.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And to your point, and also too, is with the swim and the full immersion, all of your gear, nothing gets dry. How did you aside from eating the roadside mangoes and the bananas, did you bring your food with you there, or did you source a lot of your food when you were in country?
Me personally, and as far as I remember, most of us, we brought our food with us. Yeah. Especially, dried food.
Yep. Very common. It's amazing how much food you bring for these races. That most of your weight in your bag is food.
You need something you trust. Yeah, your body is exhausted. You don't want to give it extra work by giving it some other thing.
Right.
So it's good to have the things you tested, and especially the climate difference, as it was huge. Everyone was warning us, you really need to be careful what you eat before the race, another bacteria, stuff like this,
Yep.
Even something simple might not be so easy for your stomach.
And to your point, going into the race, you have to think about what are the things that you can control, right? Because there are things you can't control. You can't control the quality of the maps. You can't control the weather, but you can control what you bring with you, what you eat during the race. So to your point, that helps protect your body.
Your nutrition, definitely. But because of this lack of race scheme and logistic before the race, there were many situations where, the stage was longer than we thought, and we didn't have enough food for the stage. It was especially the case during these jungle trekkings.
Right.
So we were resupplying some stuff in the small towns. I myself didn't trust myself to buy a proper meal there, but Stasio and Arthur, they tried. They receive a rice in a plastic bag and some kind of sauce with chicken and vegetables in another plastic bag. in a bag, not in a plastic plate, in a little bag.
In a bag, mix the two together, and there's your meal. Oh my goodness!
So they were happy about it, but yeah, but I was mostly buying or finding bananas, and okay, we were buying water and some energy drinks, stuff like that, which let's say are not so riskful, you know.
Yeah, they're sealed. Yeah, I've had that too. When I raced down in Ecuador before the race, I was very thoughtful about what I was going to eat. After the race, it was like, give it all to me. Like then you eat up then. So here you have this incredible journey, right? You go, you do so well in the race in Poland. You get the spot to go race in the Philippines. All the energy, everything to get there. The race that you had, the race that you experienced there, as compared to the race that you were going to have, how do those two things connect?
That's a nice question. Okay, I was expecting problems with the climate or challenges with the climate, but it's more like you imagine what kind of problems can come, but you can't feel them. As we said before, you can't really know how it is. So it's always a bit of surprise, the feelings. And then, okay, the maps was also something I didn't expect. It's going to be so bad, so hard. And I think in general, I thought it wouldn't be so easy because I thought it would be easier than it was.
Right.
I thought it would be easier because I thought 300 kilometers. Okay, we are all strong, experienced racers. The distance doesn't seem to be overwhelming. But yeah, here we are. All that happened, and the environment, the map, the little things that happen, little accidents. It all created a pretty difficult, pretty hard piece of racing in the Philippine jungle.
Yeah, you did the math problem. You thought, I've raced 600 kilometers. This is 300 kilometers. Yeah. So it should only be half as difficult.
Yeah.
But meanwhile,
you need to stay humble always. And the nature, the environment, it's never on your side. It's on no one's side.
Nope.
But yeah, based on our experience, I thought, it would be easier. But it was pretty tough.
Would you say it was the hardest thing you've ever done?
In some regards, yes. So, for example, after 600 kilometers, my body was, for example, more tired, more wasted. Let's say, muscles, joints. The distance does its job. But yeah, the environmental factors and the
terrain, like the overall, the whole place, the whole package of where you were racing,
and this navigational difficulties. This was also very demanding for the head, for exactly staying in the racing mode for these 3 days, staying focused, staying motivated. Despite the difficulties, and still fighting for, we didn't go there just to finish the race. We went there to get the highest possible place.
Yeah, and to your credit, second on the podium, New Zealand, tough team, strong team, young team, right? So that's a tough team. They're very, very, very strong, and Andrew Magnus has done a very good job getting them up and running.
So they're rising stars of adventure racing.
They are. They have youth on their side. We have experience, but they have youth, and they're a great interview. They've been on the show a couple of times. I always like talking to them. Their attitude is it's contagious and infectious. So here you are now. You're several weeks, months after the race. You're home now. It's the clock is turning to 2024. What's next for you?
Christmas.
Okay.
Family time. I'm taking my time. I'm not rushing back into training. as I mentioned, I work physically, so I'm staying active. But I think from January on, I will get back to some training routine. We're slowly making plans. I'm still not sure with which team I'm gonna participate, because I also have some history with a German adventure racing team. So yeah, I'm still making my plans for the next season. I think I would definitely want to take part in European championships. It's gonna be the lowland race.
Yes, lowlands
in the Netherlands.
Yeah, very, very popular race.
And the Ecuador, so the World Championships. I would love it, but yeah, let's see if I will find a team for this.
Well, that's what it boils down to, that, right? It has to be that magical combination of time and people and availability, and there's all that. Yeah. And we've all been there. Trying to put a team together for a race is hard, because people have to be able to travel, they have to afford to go, they have to get the time off, and then you have to do the team. Like I always say, the world's hardest math problem is actually getting to the start line, putting all those things together.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, Rafael, you've been an outstanding guest. I appreciate your time, and I definitely want to have you revisit the podcast. You've the races, the experience you've had, who you are as a philosopher and as a coach. You've brought a lot to the show today. What I like to do is as we wrap up the show, as we finish up, I always like to give the guest the chance to have the last word, to talk a bit about adventure racing, what it means to them, and what a role plays in their life. So please close us out.
Oh, thanks. I think maybe a little motivational part for me. This was we were saying this somewhere between the lines, and you were asking a lot about this different kinds of transitions from one discipline to another discipline, from smaller races to bigger races. What I really enjoy now is that I'm doing this what I love, and I'm aware how much time I spend on this. Not mentioning the money, not mentioning the energy, but simply my life, my life energy. But it's so satisfying. It's so satisfying that. As a teenager, I was dreaming to race around the world, and now I'm actually doing this, and now I can race next to the top teams. And I think this is the beauty of being consistent in something. And I think adventure racing is, and in general, ultra endurance sports, they're basically about being consistent. Showing up, going out, keep on training, keep on trying, and the success is not coming quick in any bigger project. You need time, but I think in adventure racing, as it's an ultra endurance sport, this time you need to give is maybe even longer. If you think in a big scale of your life, the time you need to give it to feel comfortable, to have this nice feeling that I enjoy now, that it is my lifestyle, that I love it, that I can do it on a quite good level. This is amazing. So yeah, follow your passion, and if it's adventure racing, that's great.
Well, there you have it, folks. Episode 92 of the Dark Zone at Adventure Racing Podcast. One of our longer episodes. Raf was a story machine. Hornets, getting lost, maps, all the fun adventures he had going on here. What a fantastic person to have on the show. He was so enjoyable, so engaging, and we'll be sure to see him again on the Dark Zone at Adventure Racing Podcast. If you like what you hear here, make it a point to head over to your streaming platform of choice and like and click subscribe, leave a review. That's what the algorithm likes, and that's what we like. So once again, thanks for being a listener of the Dark Zone. You keep racing, and we'll keep talking.